models are, in economics are talking about money. It is only how that money is used.
The way we have been paying our debt has really been increasing with figures as we go along.
And we borrow to pay, which means that we find ourselves and our country in a situation of perpetual dependency.
Episode of the Economy Trend Pointer. I am your host, Immaculate Burunje. With me are our resident panelists. On my right is Dr. Patrick Saisi, Head of Economic Department, Moi University. On my left, Professor Peter Ndege, a Professor of History in the Department of History, Political Science and Public Administration. On the far end is Mr. Richard Siele, a lecturer at Moi University in the Department of Economics. Welcome. Our topic today will be on the Iebc funding and budgeting. Welcome, gentlemen. The other day, Iebc unveiled a 45 billion operation plan for the coming elections. What's your comment about that?
Thank you, Immaculate. I think the 45 billion is an increment actually, because the 2013 election we spent it was actually budgeted for 25 billion, but it went up to 29-30 billion. This time round is 45 billion, and it's a huge figure. But if you compare what we are spending on election as a country, Kenya, with other countries, for example, in Ghana, for example, spends $1 per person. That is in US dollars. So you find that Ghana spends $1, DRC Congo spends $12 per person. You go to Canada, it spends $6 per person. USA spends actually $22 per person, and Kenya spends $20 US. You find that the developed countries and undeveloped, that is the developing countries, if you compare the two costs per person, we seem to be spending a huge figure on elections compared to other countries. Unless my colleagues have something to say.
Yeah, as my colleague has said, I find it very unique that Kenyan election is very expensive. Because if you find that Ghana is spending $1 per person, Kenya is spending $20. I don't know what the problem is, and I think we need to look into it and find out why Kenya is spending almost equal to what Americans are doing. Sure. And yet American election is more sophisticated than ours. Yeah. So that's why I'm wondering, we need really to look at what are some of those things that are making our election to be expensive, so that we can look at it and moderate it as per what we can afford.
I think what I can say is it's disturbing that the costs of elections are indicating that Kenya spends disproportionately higher amounts per person. Yeah. I think the problem is maybe the government needs to rationalize, or the Iebc needs to rationalize why it ought to be given such huge sums of money. What is so unique about the terrain in Kenya, the political terrain, communications and all, that warrants such exorbitant expenditure?
And Dr. Saisi, you people have just mentioned that the Kenyan elections are too expensive, considering that it's a developing country. It has been spending, according to the current budget, it has budgeted for around 45 billion. That means $20 per person. So, is there any corruption, procurement, or anything of such cases that accrue to this large amount of money?
I think when it comes to budgeting, Iebc needs to do something, because the other day I was reading the newspapers. They have 300 million for mortgages for their people, for their staff. They have 10 million for tea or something like that. Yeah. When we are really, we have a big deficit, some of these things needs to be removed from the budget, unnecessary things. Yeah. Because I don't think guys will not work very well because they don't have teas in their offices. And so if we have tea, that's fine, but if we are working under tight budgets right now, I think there are unnecessary things that needs to be removed from the budget, such as, they need to minimize on, they call it hospitality in their regional offices, 10 million. Then they talk about mortgages for their staff, 300 million, and on and on and on and on. I think what we need to know and to focus on is the process itself, not necessarily too much on emoluments of the persons who are going to run that.
And apart from other unnecessary costs, do you think there's any corruption procurement in between the large amounts of money?
I'm sure there must be some inflation. I mean, inflating of procurement services and so on. Even we saw the kits that were bought. They call them PBR or something. The prices were very high, and the people were wondering why. So we also need to vet before we send out those tenders. We need to know exactly how much is that going to cost. I think if we also control that part, it will be good.
Okay, sure.
Thank you. I think what I must say is money is required in the election. That to me is a fact.
Yeah.
And I recall when I was going through some write-ups on 1896, the presidential election for America, somebody said that one of the senators, he said that there are two things which are important. And he said one is actually money. And unfortunately, he said the other one he does not know.
It's true.
So money is required in the election, but the way it is actually budgeted, the way it is spent, to me is now the worry. Because money at all times is required in the election. And if that money is utilized as it is proposed or supposed to be utilized, will not actually go wrong. But a lot of money, if you see the 45 billion which you are spending, it is actually huge. But it could be the initial, because we are in the initial stages as opposed to the other American countries which are actually developed. So in the initial stages, you must buy these gadgets and they call them assets. But I'm sure as we go along, it should actually come low. So as far as the money is being spent, it could be in terms of that wastefulness, we need to check that so that we don't use a lot of money as intended, as supposed to be the actual amount of money. Of course, in procurement, as my Dr. said, there could be some inflation of the same. But in it, we must spend money for us to actually have a fair and a good election.
And Prof, we've seen the Iebc states that they are going, the more money, they stated that the 45 billion that they've asked for, it's going to be for improving the color of the ballot papers, and for every polling station they're going to have like women's situation monitoring rooms. This is going to put a further strain to the treasury, which will lead to more grappling of collection of revenue. What's your comments about the same?
I can see a tendency by Iebc people now trying to rationalize the astronomer, the high amounts of money that they want to spend. One would want to try to understand why. Now, the colors of ballot papers, and you have in polling stations people who are supposed to guide the so-called illiterates or colorblind people. Indeed, I find it rather funny, find it rather strange. And I think we should not go to such lengths. I mean, we should just do what other countries are doing, rather than take on such flimsy excuses for increasing costs of the elections. I am not very sure that women need special treatment. I mean, why? Why would they need special treatment? I would imagine that Kenyan women have not complained of any discrimination in terms of polling. I would imagine probably that those who require help are duly helped, particularly the older people, the literate people are told that this is how to do this and this. And still, from what we know, this has not even minimized the numbers of spoiled votes cast, in terms of showing people where to put X or a tick, not such details. I want to agree with my colleagues that we are spending very disproportionately high amounts of money on these elections. There is no reason at all why we should spend the same per person as the United States of America. It would appear that there is something going on that we really don't know, which reminds me and many other Kenyans about what happened with procurement. Back in Britain, those who are responsible for that fraud had to face the law, and from what we heard, they are serving terms. Now back here in Kenya, we still, as it were, I was saying that we don't have proof. We don't have proof that there was some fraudulent dealings. The Iebc must come clear out of this, and the Iebc must easen all these things for Kenyans. The Kenyan taxpayer is already overtaxed. Ultimately, it is the voter who is going to pay the astronomical amounts of money.
I think the Iebc, the way I talked about some wasteful spending, and I'm wondering what the women's situation room is. Is it going to be a room maybe where we have pregnant women who are coming to vote, and then they might have problems? That is why they need it, or what are they monitoring? Because why should women, the way Professor said, have special, what kind of special needs are these? So that kind of spending, I think it should be removed, according to me. And then we streamline our procurement offices. We make sure that they work within the rules, and also they go for the least amount of money that we may buy the gadgets that we want. I don't know, because we have to prudently spend our money. We should not just be spending for the funny or for the sake of it. You see, Kenya has a problem meeting its obligations because of the deficits we are having. And we need 45 billion for the purpose of election. And the election is very important. So what I'm saying is, let us work on things that can add value. I don't know what the kind of color that is going to add value to this election, and all parties have colors. Are we going to say now which color are they going to pick to make the election be good? The election is an election. Just put a symbol there, plus the name of the person, and you vote. That's it. I don't think there is any need for quality or whatever it is.
I think what Professor and Victoria said is, to me, it is true. However, there is the impact which will be there in the economy is actually increase of taxes. Of course, they are silent, or diversion of what has been collected to election. So you'll find that instead of us spending that money in a very more an investable way, which can be able to generate more income or more employment opportunities, we are spending on the election. So if it is the color, unless the color does not cost, but I'm sure it will cost more than even the initial. So it is to me, diversion of money to the color, to me, should actually be refrained, in the sense that it will lead us to other things, like going for more money, requesting for more money externally or internally and all that. So the deficit will occur. Unless otherwise, if the color is part of what the initial cost, we have no problem. They don't need even to tell us that. But if it is now another additional cost, so it really, that should be stopped. Even if it costs anything, it is a matter of making priorities. You choose, because if I'm the one who is in charge of that, and the economy, as far as the economy is concerned, choose not to spend on colors, and the one for the women. Thank you.
Okay. We are taking a short break, but don't go too far. Remember, our interesting topic is Iebc budgeting and how it is extremely straining our economy.